Our second presenter is code 105, and the title is Live.
Joey always told me, laughing as though it were actually a joke, that he wanted to kill himself, but it was never the right time. There were always groceries to be bought or little brothers to be tucked in at night. Don't worry, Joey isn't going to kill himself like 20 more seconds into the poem. It's not the kind of story I'm telling here. The USA routinely fails to provide the most basic services for people with mental illness, something the country would never tolerate for patients with cancer or other physical disorders. Stigma forces many to live in shame rather than seek support, even as their lives unravel. If this were cancer, we'd be talking about giving patients the very best treatments. Funding in mental health is so poor, and services are so hard to find that many patients can get help only after they've become psychotic. That's akin to treating diabetes only after someone needs a leg amputated. Only after someone says, "You're not crazy! Stop calling yourself crazy, you're just You're just sensitive. And a little odd, yeah, and screwed up enough to require an ass load of meds. See, that's not crazy, and you need to stop saying that you are, because, you know, when you say shit like that, people are gonna start thinking you're a lunatic or something. The tentacles or the evil tasks that invade my life. Like, for example, I wasn't going to get into a good college, which meant I wasn't going to have a good job, which meant I wasn't going to have health insurance, which meant I'd have to pay tremendous amounts of money for the shrinks and drugs my brain needed, which meant I'd get depressed. And that was the big one, because I knew what that did to me. It made it so that I wouldn't get out of bed anymore, which led to the ultimate thing: homelessness. If you can't get out of bed for long enough, people come and take your bed away. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 4.1 million people aged 18 to 64 who live below the federal poverty line reported having a mental disability. The cycle between poverty and mental illness is vicious. Without money, the mentally ill cannot receive the doctors and medications they need, and thus their condition worsens. We must destroy the stigma of mental illness and make treatment accessible for everyone, including my Uncle Ricky, who has suffered from bipolar disorder and paranoid schizophrenia since a mental breakdown at 19. Through the Prose, it's kind of a funny story by Ned Vizzini, The Soloist by Steve Lopez, and Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson, and the poem Joey by Neil Hilborn. The program. Because the solution begins where the stigma ends. Live. By various authors. I watch him from across the street for a while before approaching. His violin playing is a little scratchy and tentative, but it's clear that this is no beginner. He tells me his name is Nathaniel Anthony Ayers. He's going to play until he's proud of what he hears, he says, and I tell him I might like to write about him for the LA Times. I noticed while talking to him that someone has scrawled names on the pavement where we're standing. And Nathaniel says that he did that with the rock. Nathaniel, whose names are those? Well, those are my classmates, Juilliard, Susan and Nancy, Stephen, and Craig. Joey got a promotion, and now he can afford antidepressants. Joey is Joe now. Joe is a cold engine in which none of the parts complain. Being on medication for mental illness is not fun. Kids don't buy black market Prozac to take to raves. People don't use B12 shots as a gateway drug to heroin. Even if a drug is working for a while, it might stop working, then you have to start all over again with something new. God, and then you have to deal with the side effect of the new drug, which can include feeling excessively stabby when coupled with some asshole telling you that your medication not working is just proof that you don't really need medication at all. You know, the drugs that I take are just a pinch of salt. A little seasoning in life, if you will. You know, your baked potatoes would be just fine without them, but anyone will tell you that a pinch of salt can make all the difference. I am your potatoes, and I taste better Maybe this is a bad analogy. How about this? I'm waiting for someone to say what you need to do is exit for the shift to occur. I want there to be a shift so bad. I want to feel my brain slide back into the slot it was meant to be in. Rest there the way it did before the fall of last year, back when I spoke up in class because I was excited, smart about the world. I need there to be a shift. I'm waiting for the phrase that'll invoke it. It'll be like a miracle within my life. You know, they say that serious depression is a chemical imbalance, and with the right drugs for it, I'll be fine. But I can't afford it. Drugs, doctors, anyone. Stigma even shaped the crafting of the Medicaid law a half-century ago because Congress did not want to waste federal money on mental illness. The Medicare law discriminates against those with mental illness as well by limiting the number of days patients can receive inpatient psychiatric care. Medicare imposes no such limits for physical health. By denying hospital care to the mentally ill, Congress set two standards for health, effectively telling the country that the mentally ill are less deserving of a decent life than others. This systemic discrimination, embedded in Medicare and Medicaid laws, has led to the acceleration of emptying of state hospitals, leaving many of their sickest and most vulnerable patients with nowhere to turn to. Like a Vietnam or World War II amputee who falls out of his wheelchair, a filthy colostomy bag next to him, and few people will take notice. An insane man walks naked through the rubble, and people will walk by as if he is not there. A barefoot woman with her top falling off runs down San Julian, screaming hysterically, batting away ghosts. This is where Nathaniel sleeps. You know, he may be paranoid, but when he rails against lawlessness and disorder, and when he tells me drug dealers and thieves are out to take everything he's got, is he being crazy or just observant? There's a lot I cannot do for Nathaniel. I can't cure him. I can't get him a doctor. I can't get him into an orchestra. I think the genes for being an artist and mentally ill aren't just related. They're the same gene, but try telling that to a bill collector. You know, I once caught Joey in my dad's office staring at the safe where he knew he kept the guns. I once caught Joey in biology class staring at the scalpel like he wanted to be the frog splayed out, wide open, so honest. You know, there's only one difference between me and Joey. When I wanted to open myself up and see if there really were bees rattling around in there, my parents got me a therapist. I can pinpoint the session that brought me back to the world. That session cost $75. $75 is 2 weeks of groceries. It's a month of bus fare. It's not even a school year's worth of new shoes, but it took weeks of $75 to get to the one that saved my life. Joey and I both had parents that believed us when we said we weren't okay. But mine could afford to do something about it. I wonder how many kids like Joey wanted to die and were unlucky enough to actually pull it off. How many kids and people who cared about them but also had to pay rent. You know, I'm so lucky that right now I'm not describing Joey's funeral. I'm so lucky that we all lived through who we were to become who we are. So lucky. So lucky. I want to play. I don't know if I could ever get back to the way I was, but I want to play. Do you think you could get me into an orchestra? My God, I don't want this concert to ever end. I'm not better, you know. The weight hasn't just left my head. I feel how easily I could fall back into it. Go and get my bike and head to the Brooklyn Bridge. All of that is still here. The only thing is, it's not an option now. It's just a possibility. Like it's a possibility I could turn to dust in the next instant and be disseminated throughout the universe as an omniscient consciousness. It's not a very likely possibility. Jeez, why was I trying to kill myself? All of a sudden, my brain doesn't want to think. It just wants to do. Travel, fly, swim, meet, dance, laugh, hold, walk, skip. Okay, it's gay, but whatever. Skip. Jog. Run. Run home. Run home and enjoy. Take these verbs and enjoy them. They're yours. They're yours because you chose them. You could have left them all behind, but you chose to stay here. So now live for real.